Man, this past weekend was a rough one. We had a flight get held up for a couple hours in Dallas because this guy maybe had too much to drink, and I don't know if he was like getting handsy in the back with flight attendants or people or what. I don't, they didn't tell us exactly what was going on, but it took a couple hours to get the guy off the plane. And then as we were uh, leaving Dallas to go to Amarillo, Southwest cancels our flight because the plane broke down. And yeah, that. We ended up having to sleep at the airport because the airline said that there were no hotels in Dallas because of whatever things that were going on in Dallas. And so we just we slept in the airport on chairs. I mean, didn't really sleep, I guess. Just kind of sitting there waiting. So we get up with the idea that we're going to take a rental car to get to Amarillo because there were no flights on the next day to get us from Dallas to Amarillo. So we go down to the rental car desk, and there's no rental cars evidently in all of Dallas, and so we're frantic at this point trying to figure out how we're going to get to our show and how we're going to do this thing that God had called us to do in Shamrock, Texas. And so anyways, we don't get a car, and we're just checking every rental car company we can find in Dallas, and we finally find this one who says they maybe have a car for us at this Hilton hotel that's a little ways away from the airport. So we go there, and we get there, and they say there's no car for us. And then I start looking around, and there's like so many men at this hotel. I'm like, well, that's interesting. It's like nothing but men, and there's a gazillion of them. And then I see a lot of those guys start to kiss and make out and whatever else in the hotel, and then I start to realize, oh, this is a same-sex convention. This is a homosexual convention. And so I'm sitting there with my guitar, and I'm not like judging these people or anything. I'm just it's not where I belong, so I'm uncomfortable and just really want to get out of the hotel. And so I get my guitar and I start singing God is on the Move, and this guy walks up and he says, oh, you're in a band? And I said, yeah, we're in a band. And he said, cool, what music do you play? And I said, well, we play Christian rock. And when I said that, his body language went from, oh, you play in a band, this is so cool. And he was, facing me to oh, and he kind of turns like this. And it was almost like the word Christian, just me speaking that into the air, into the atmosphere in front of this fella. It's like that word alone just brought so much pain and hurt, and you could just tell. I don't, who knows if he'd been church hurt, or maybe family members who go to church that maybe had hurt him, and who knows. I'm totally guessing, but you could just tell that this word that brought so much life to me and my family, when I spoke it to him, it brought so much hurt and pain. And so I prayed for this guy throughout the day because I was just convinced, out of all the people in the hotel, this guy comes up to talk to me. I'm thinking, that the Lord's like pursuing this guy's heart, and how God just works in his mysterious ways. And I couldn't help but just pray for this guy all day, and pray that if God is pursuing his heart, which I believe that he is, and if God is wanting to fix the broken things inside this guy's heart and in his life, like God has done for me time and time again, that this guy would become aware of it, and that God would really just put him in situations where he's like, okay, you've got my attention, so that was interesting for sure. And so anyways, we ended up getting a car, and as we're driving, I start to get word from my wife that my daughters are all getting the stomach bug, and then our sound guy who's with us, he starts getting some calls that, his kid's throwing up and at home. And then Cliff, this entire time, I don't know if he's got food poisoning or stomach bug or what, but he's, just in horrible stomach pain and cramps and all this kind of stuff he was dealing with. And so I'm driving, and the guys are kind of all asleep and doing their own thing, and I'm driving, and I just start naming it out. God, why the drunk guy? Why the delayed flights? Why do I have to sleep in a hotel, or not in a hotel, but in an airport why did I wind up at this convention where, I'm so out of place, and why did I meet this guy, and why is Cliff sick, and why are my kids sick, and, why? And I was really maybe, a little frustrated in asking my whys, and who knows, maybe God was, going to come at me and say, well, here's why, with his big God bold voice. It's maybe what I was expecting. And I didn't get any of that. I didn't get any of that. All I got was a whisper. And it's maybe the loudest thing God could have said, but it was a whisper. And I felt it kind of in my ear here. And it just said, one. And man, it just rocked me. Because then you got to believe, like, is all this trouble, is it worth one? Is it worth one coming to know my friend and my Savior, Jesus? And you have to ask that question, and then you have to answer it. And as I was driving, really in tears at this point, I said, yeah, God, this is worth it. This is worth it. So we get there by the skin of our teeth, barely even sound check, barely even have time to set things up. We do our show, and I explain all this to people, that there's more going on than just the physical, that there's this spiritual war happening for our very souls, and that God is, in fact, pursuing the hearts of people at this show in Texas. And I was here to tell them the good news, the good news of Jesus and what God had done in my life, and how steady and constant and how good of a friend he had been. And nobody really responds. Like, nobody comes forward, and I'm just like, so defeated. After the show, I started heading towards the merch booth, and there's this girl who looks about the age of my oldest daughter, and she's in tears, and I just said, are you okay? And she said, I'm not religious, and my family's not in church. She said, but what you said tonight and what you sang, it moved my heart. It stirred my heart. And she was real confident in her language, even through the tears. And she told me, I want to pray to be saved. And so I prayed with her, and it just rocked my world. There's no other way to say it, And the whole time, I'm thinking about this whisper, there's one. And we got them praying, and I introduced her to the local pastor, and then some of her friends that were there, Christians that had been praying for her for a while. They all came, and they celebrated what God was doing in their friend's life. And I told her, I said, I think you're the one. You're the one. And she said, I know I'm the one. I know I was the reason that you guys came. And man, it was just such a profound moment, and something I'll never forget. It's just an incredible moment. I got to come home and share with my daughters and my wife, and it was just such like a faith increase for the Howard House in Kentucky this week. And anyways, I just wanted to share that with you guys. If it just feels like roadblock after roadblock, or headache after headache, or whatever it is, and you're in a situation where you're asking yourself, like, what am I doing this for? Why am I doing it? Is it worth it? Just remember the very, very loud whisper of a God that's good and constant and steady. And remember, one. Thanks, guys.